this part in my series on how to fix a dent, I want to cover some of the aspects of roughing in the dent with the first applications of filler. You're going to learn later on in this series, I kind of differentiate between roughing in the dent and the final finishing. And you know, in part 2, I talked about the 3 different types of filler, but I really didn't get into the different quality of filler out there. That's right, there's a huge difference. You can get cheap filler for $15, $18 a gallon. You get kind of the mid-grade for $25 a gallon, but the really good stuff is like $40 a gallon. And some of that good stuff is hard to find in the quarts. Well, this was $20 for this 1 quart. And it says right on here, world's best premium lightweight filler. And I tend to agree, because there is a huge difference between using the cheap stuff and using this really premium filler. There's a lot of things they do to this. There's extra additives for adhesion. This has a special vacuum bagging process which eliminates air bubbles, so you don't get those air bubbles showing up, you know, when you sand through to your filler, and then you got to, you know, fill it again. So air bubbles are something you do want to avoid. And then it's not so tacky, it's not so sticky. So it doesn't plug the sandpaper as much as the cheaper filler. And you know, to me, that's one of the biggest hassles, just the biggest hassle. So I don't believe the economy is in using cheap filler. I mixed up a sample just about 20 minutes ago. We got the hardware store variety here, and this is the premium. Now, most of this premium body filler you can't buy in auto parts stores or hardware stores. You have to go to auto body specialty stores or possibly buy it online. So I did this little sample up, and I want to show you a couple of the differences that you might run into when using different types of filler. Let me begin by showing you the difference inside the can. Okay, this is the standard type of finished filler that I showed you in part 2, and you know, you can see a lot of times you'll open up this can, there'll be separation in there, and of course, you know, it's got a pretty good consistency to it. Okay, now let's open up this other one, the premium grade. A lot of times I'll open this up and you won't even see a separation, and look at that. You know, I haven't mixed this. This is quite a bit smoother. It is a little bit runnier, and when you mix it and pick it up, you can definitely see the difference. The difference in the smoothness and the lack of air in this premium body filler. Okay, now let's take a close look at this little sample I did, and you can see, okay, this is the less expensive, and the premium here is in the light blue. Let's dig away at it. Let's see if there's any difference there. We'll dig away at this one first. No, it's pretty, but this one, look at that. Right away I can tell the difference in adhesion. It's minor, but it's there, okay? Now let's try the flex test. We're going to flex this board here. Let's start out here and flex here. Now remember, this has only been drying for about 20 to 25 minutes, so it's not going to crack. I mean, that's why you want to work it early. You don't want to leave it a couple days because it is easier to sand. Neither one of these are cracking, but let's take the 36 grit paper to it. This one first. I've done this so it's a very rough area. Okay, so we're going to sand this here. Now, I'm pushing pretty hard here. Okay, take a look at the sanding disc. Now, for any of you who've done a lot of bodywork, you know this is one of the more frustrating aspects of working with filler, is the problem with it plugging up your sandpaper. Now let's go over the premium grade. I'll use the other end here. Now right away when I start sanding it, look at that. I'm not pushing as hard. I'm not using as much force to sand this. Look at how quickly it's breaking down, and then look at the paper. Can you see the difference there between the cheap stuff and the premium stuff, well, let me tell you, that's a huge difference when you get into doing particularly large body panel repair. This little dent here, you probably wouldn't be that big a deal, but boy, I tell you, just in this aspect alone, plugging the sandpaper, there's no way I use this cheap stuff anymore. I always prefer to go the route of the premium filler. Okay, now back to the fender. Well, look at this. You can see there's already a change in the front lip on this fender. You know, yesterday I mixed up a little of the short strand and spread this on, and then went through the process of how to shape this with my two favorite sandpaper. This is a 40 grit. This is, you know, an 80 grit. You don't, like I say, you don't get these at your local hardware store. You have to get them at auto body specialty supply stores. But unfortunately, folks, the files were corrupted. So I can't show you. I apologize, but I will try to explain. The short strand is thick and gooey and really hard to spread on. But remember, this lip here had some real deformation and some deep dents in it, and I wanted to fill this, not with the finish filler, but with something really strong. And this short strand glass body filler is really strong. I could sit here and bang on this and it wouldn't chip away, and that's important on an edge. And remember, I don't like to fill the finish filler more than 1/16 of an inch. So if I have some deep spots, I'll often go in and use this short strand because you get exceptional adhesion and real tough. So once it was on there, when it started to tack up, remember when you're working with this short strand, work it, sand it within the first hour. You wait till the next day. Okay, you're going to see how hard this is. I mean, it doesn't even want to sand. If you have it built up like this, what I did is I came in with the 40 grit. There was some, you know, roughness and high spots. I knocked all the high spots down, and then using the 80 grit, you know, you have to use a sanding motion on these lips where you don't want to be sanding like this, and you don't want to be sanding like this, or you're going to sand flat spots. I use a rolling method like this. See that? Where I have to do this by hand. I can't use a block, and I have to just keep rolling and working the paper like this, see, to get that curvature back and to get that real smooth consistency as it rolls over the lip. This is one of the hardest areas to do bodywork, by the way, on this type of a lip. You know, doing out here on the flat isn't that difficult. So I've got this front edge roughed in. Now I'm going to rough in this flat part of the damage using the finish filler. I mentioned it's the following day, and it's early in the morning, even though shop heater is on, and it's, you know, maybe up to 60 degrees already in here. This fender's cold, and it actually feels damp because, you know, I'm in the Northwest. It poured rain last night. You'd be amazed how much moisture can get in the air, even inside the shop. And this is really important. You pay attention to this particular tip. Is when you apply body fill over bare metal, you want to make sure it's totally clean, and you want to make sure it's totally dry. I'm talking microscopically dry. Because if you trap any moisture in behind that body filler, it will start rust underneath, and this is one of the more common reasons why years later you see the body filler start to bubble up on a damaged area. So I've got a heat lamp rigged up here. You know, there's commercially available heat lamps. You could use a 500 watt halogen lamp. What I do is this is a stand for a movie light. These are really handy to have around the shop. And I've just got a clip light, but I've got a heat lamp, you know, a bathroom type heat lamp here. And I'm going to get this lamp in here, and I'm going to heat up this metal, okay? Couple things. You don't want it hot. If the metal gets hot and you put the body filler on it, it's going to like tack off in about 3 or 4 minutes. You won't even have time to finish smoothing it. What you want is you want the metal warm to the touch, about body temperature, okay? And you see, I'm feeling it. It's still a little cool. So I'm going to warm that up. I will let it get hot, and then I will let it cool down, warm to the touch, and then I will start spreading on the filler. I'll also get some, you don't want all this microscopic dust in here either from the sand scratches, because that'll only hinder the adhesion of that filler. So I use lacquer thinner, or in this case I'm using alcohol in a shop rag, and I'm going to really clean this. You get amazed how much junk's on there. You got metal filings, paint dust. I got Bondo dust or filler dust from the short strand that I put on yesterday. So this may take about 3 applications, but you want this metal super clean and you want it warm. Okay, while this is drying, while this is heating up, I'm going to mix up a batch of filler. And before we actually apply the filler to this dent, I want to show you a couple characteristics of what it's like to work with this before it gets really hard to sand. Here's the sample I mixed up about 10 minutes ago. And it's still kind of tacky, and you can see it's very soft and flexible. This over here is a sample I did a couple days ago. And it is rock hard. And there's no flex to this at all. So what I wanted to demonstrate here is the timing. The timing of when you work the filler and when you do the initial leveling and sanding. If you wait, you obviously don't want to wait a day, but even if you wait a few hours, this filler gets hard, and man, you can sand and sand, and it really creates a lot of fine dust too. See that? And I'm pushing and pushing. Look at how much progress I've made here. I just push and push. Okay, so if you need exercise and like to work hard, this is what you want to do. Just let your filler dry real hard. Let it sit for a couple hours, or better yet, let it sit overnight. Okay, sorry about that. Now watch this. If I come over here and start sanding on this one, look at that. See that? It just rolls. Now you have to be careful. This may be just a little bit too early to begin sanding, because it will plug up your paper, and if you're not careful, you're sanding away. Look what's happened. You'll actually break it away. You'll break it away from the body panel that you're trying to repair. So once you spread the filler, you want to kind of stay on top of it. Don't go off and take a break or eat your lunch or something. You stay right on it. And you watch it start to set up. There are, when you're working with large dents, there's other ways to shape this down. Now I have put this on very rough. This is a problem, when you're learning, trying to get this smooth, so it's very rough, and if I were to let this hard, imagine what it's going to take for me to sand this smooth. There are other tools available, and we're not going to use these a lot in this series on Fix a Dent because we're talking about a simple dent, but these are called Surform planes. In the trade, we call these cheese graters, because you start grating away on the body filler, and it's like grating cheese, provided it's not hard. Now they come in different shapes. You've got round ones, curved ones, flat ones, long, short, and so on. These are very handy and are great time savers if you're doing big dents or repairing large panel areas. When you've got a little dent like on the front fender over here, a Surform plane is probably not going to be needed. But watch. I'm just going to take this round one because you'll be able to see it better as I show you how I'm going to shape this. Now, I have to be very careful. It's only been 15 minutes, but watch this. Can you see that? See, it comes off like cheese. Now, if I were to do this too soon, I would pull the filler away from the fender. So once again, timing is critical. It needs to be hard, but not super hard. Now I'm just going to keep shaping this until I get it smooth, or get it roughed in, as I would say. Now you have two advantages in using a ceriform plane. Number one, speed, and number two, dust. You do not create the heavy, fine dust that will fill up your garage or shop like you would if you were sanding. So if you time this right, you can knock a lot of body filler off in a very short period of time. Look, I'm not even pulling this away from the paper. And I just put this on regular cardstock. Okay, I hope that illustrates a point. Now let's take this ceriform plane or cheese grater over to this hard stuff and try to cheese grate it. Look at that. I'm going to be working just about as hard as if I were trying to sand it. So that's the key. Now, if you don't have a cheese grater and you don't have a huge, wavy area that you're trying to knock down, you can use just your 40 grit paper like this. And this is what I'll be using on the fender over here. I'm not putting enough filler on there to use a ceriform plane, but I will want to quickly break it and smooth it down, and I'll use the 40 grit as a substitute for quote unquote the cheese grater. But watch what happens here when I take the 40 grit to this soft, recently mixed filler. See? If you wait long enough, you may have to get a wire brush and keep brushing off your paper. But watch how I can shape this. And I'm not even pushing. In fact, you don't want to push hard, because if you do, you may pull the filler away. And it's interesting. You start working this at about 10 to 15 minutes, and as you're working it, you get on it to 20 minutes, and suddenly it's starting to get harder and harder, and it kind of times itself with the way you're sanding. Now, by this time in the process, I can put a little more muscle to this, because this has started to harden, and separation from the body panel is not a big concern. So I'll just keep sanding, and look at the dust that's created. It's not really a dust. It's kind of a big gummy type of powder. See that? So once again, the advantages are speed and lack of creating that really, really fine dust. So already I've taken this filler, which was a big messy lump, and I smooth it down to rough it in with very minimal effort. Now imagine me trying to do this with this 2-day-old piece here. I'd be sanding for the next 20 minutes to try to get it down and roughed in. So what I'm trying to point out here, folks, is that timing is everything.